Hi, my name is Emilie Rommel Shimkus, and I am reading from William Faulkner's The Sound and the Fury. This novel was written in 1929 and became one of his most celebrated works, even if it was not one of his most popular initially. The story is a sweeping saga about a family in Mississippi where Faulkner himself was born and raised. William Faulkner was born and raised in Mississippi. He began his career as a poet, and though he is a contemporary of Ernest Hemingway, his style was vastly different. Rather than Hemingway's sparse prose, Faulkner's Nobel Prize-winning style followed a stream of consciousness and his sweeping epic family sagas throughout his works. We're going to read an excerpt from The Sound and the Fury, his 1929 novel. We're going to start halfway through Book 2, following Quentin Compson's story. Stay mad. My shirt was getting wet in my hair. Across the roof, hearing the roof loud now, I could see Natalie going through the garden among the rain. Get wet, I hope you catch pneumonia. Go on home, cowface. I jumped hard as I could into the hog wallow. The mud yellowed up to my waist, stinking. I kept on plunging until I fell down and rolled over in it. Hear them in swimming, sister? I wouldn't mind doing that myself. If I had time. When I have time. I could hear my watch. Mud was warmer than the rain. It smelled awful. She had her back turned. I went around in front of her. You know what I was doing? She turned her back. I went around in front of her. The rain creeping into the mud, flatting her bodice through her dress. It smelled horrible. I was hugging her. That's what I was doing. She turned her back. I went around in front of her. I was hugging her, I tell you. I don't give a damn what you were doing. You don't. I'll make you give a damn. She hit my hands away. I smeared mud on her with the other hand. I couldn't feel the wet smacking of her hand. I wiped mud from my legs, smeared it on her wet, hard, turning body, hearing her fingers going into my face, but I couldn't feel it, even when the rain began to taste sweet on my lips. They saw us from the water first, heads and shoulders. They yelled, and one rose squatting and sprang among them. They looked like beavers, the water lipping about their chins, yelling, "Take that girl away! What you want to bring a girl here for? Go on way!" "She won't hurt you. We just want to watch you for a while." They squatted in the water. Their heads drew into a clump, watching us. Then they broke and rushed towards us, hurling water with their hands. We moved quick. "Look out, boys, she won't hurt you." "Get on way, Harvard!" It was the second boy, the one that fought the horse in the wagon back there at the bridge. "Splash 'em, fellas!" "Let's get out and throw 'em in," another said. "I ain't afraid of any girl." "Splash 'em! Splash them!" They rushed toward us, hurling water. We moved back. "Go on way!" they yelled. "Go on away!" We went away. They huddled just under the bank, their slick heads in a row against the bright water. We went on. That's not for us, is it? The sun slanted through to the moss here and there, leveler. "Poor kid. You're just a girl." Little flowers grew among the moss, littler than I had ever seen. "You're just a girl, poor kid." There was a path curving along beside the water. Then the water was still again, dark and still and swift. Nothing but a girl, poor sister. We lay in the wet grass, panting in the rain like cold shot on my back. "Do you care now? Do you? Do you? My Lord, we sure are in a mess. Get up." Where the rain touched my forehead began to smart. My hand came red away, streaking off pink in the rain. "Does it hurt?" "Course it does. What do you reckon? I tried to scratch your eyes out. My Lord, we sure do stink. We better try to wash it off in the branch." "There's town again, sister. You have to go home now. I gotta get back to school." "Look how late it's getting. You'll go home now, won't you?" But she just looked at me, with her black, secret, friendly gaze, the half-naked loaf clutched to her breast. "Aw, it's wet. I thought we jumped back in time." I took my handkerchief and tried to wipe the loaf, but the crust began to come off, so I stopped. "We'll just have to let it dry itself. Hold it like this." She held it like that. It looked kind of like rats had been eating it now, and the water building and building up, the squatting back, the sloughed mud stinking surfaceward, pocking the pattering surface like grease on a hot stove. "I told you I'd make you. I don't give a goddamn what you do." Then we heard the running, and we stopped, and looked back, and saw him coming up the path running, the level shadows flickering on his legs. Well, he's in a hurry, we'd bet... And then I saw another man, an oldish man, running heavily, clutching a stick, and a boy naked from the waist up, clutching his pants as he ran. "There's Julio," the little girl said. And then I saw his Italian face and his eyes, and he sprang upon me. We went down. His hands were jabbing at my face, and he was saying something and trying to bite me, I reckon. And then they hauled him off and held him heaving and thrashing and yelling, and they held his arms, and he tried to kick me, and they dragged him back. The little girl was howling, holding the loaf in both arms. The half-naked boy was darting and jumping up and down, clutching his trousers, and someone pulled me up in time to see another stark, naked figure coming around the tranquil bend in the path, running, change direction in mid-stride, and leap into the woods, a couple of garments rigid as boards behind it. Julio still struggled. The man who pulled me up said, "Whoa now, we got you." He wore a vest, but no coat. Upon it was a metal shield. In his other hand, he clutched a knotted, polished stick. "You're Ants, aren't you?" I said. "I was looking for you. What's the matter?" "I'll warn you, anything you say will be used against you," he said. "You are under arrest." "I kill him," Julio said. He struggled. 2 men held him. The little girl howled steadily, holding the bread. "You steal my sister," Julio said. "Let go, misters." "Steal his sister?" I said. "Why, I've been—" "Shut up," Aunt said. "You can tell that to Squire." "Steal his sister?" I said. Julio broke from the men and sprang at me again, but the marshal met him, and they struggled until the other 2 pinioned his arms again. Ants released him, panting. "You darn furriner," he said. "I got a good mind to take you up, too. Assault and battery." He turned to me again. "Will you come peaceable, or do I handcuff you?" "I'll come peaceable," I said. "Anything, just so I can find someone to do something with—" "Stole his sister," I said. "Stole his—" "I warned you," Ants said. "He aims to charge you with meditated criminal assault. Here, you make that gal shut up that noise." "Oh," I said. And then I began to laugh. 2 more boys with plastered heads and round eyes came out of the bushes, buttoning shirts that had already dampened onto their shoulders and arms. And I tried to stop the laughter, but I couldn't. "Watch him, Ants. He's crazy, I believe." I'll have to quit," I said. "It'll stop in a minute. The other time it said—" I said, laughing. "Just let me sit down a while." I sat down, they watching me, and the little girl with her streaked face in the gnawed-looking loaf, and the water swift and peaceful below the path. After a while, the laughter ran out, but my throat wouldn't quit trying to laugh, like retching after your stomach is empty. "Whoa now," Ants said. "Get a grip on yourself." "Yes," I said, tightening my throat. There was another yellow butterfly, like one of the sunflecks had come loose. After a while, I didn't have to hold my throat so tight. I got up. "I'm ready. Which way?" We followed the path, the 2 others watching Julio, and the little girl and the boys somewhere in the rear. The path went along the river to the bridge. We crossed it and the tracks. People come into the doors to look at us, and more boys materializing from somewhere, until when we turned into the main street, we had quite a procession. Before the drugstore stood an auto, a big one, but I didn't recognize them, until Mrs. Bland said, "Why, Quentin Compson." And then I saw Gerald and Spoade in the back seat, sitting on the back of his neck, and Shreve. I didn't know the 2 girls. "Quentin Compson," Mrs. Bland said. "Good afternoon," I said, raising my hat. "I'm under arrest. Sorry I didn't get your note. Did Shreve tell you?" "Under arrest," Shreve said. "Excuse me," he said. He heaved himself up and climbed over their feet and got out. He had on a pair of my flannel pants, like a glove. I don't remember forgetting them. I don't remember how many chins Mrs. Bland had either. The prettiest girl was with Gerald in front, too. They watched me through veils with a kind of delicate horror. "Who's under arrest?" Shreve said. "What's this, mister?" "Gerald," Mrs. Bland said. "Send those people away. You get in this car, Quentin." Gerald got out. Spoade hadn't moved. "What's he done, Cap?" he said. "Robbed a hen house?" "I warn you," Ant said. "You know the prisoner?" "Know him," Shreve said. "Look here, he's—" "Then you just come along to Squire's. You're obstructing justice. Come along." He shook my arm. "Well, good afternoon," I said. "Glad to have seen y'all. Sorry I couldn't be with you." "You, Gerald," Mrs. Bland said. "Now look here, Constable," Gerald said. "I warn you, you're interfering with an officer of the law," Ant said. "If you've anything to say, you can come to the Squire's, make cognizance of the prisoner." We went on. Quite a procession now, Ants and I leading. I could hear them telling them what it was, and Spoade asking questions, and then Julio said something violently in Italian, and I looked back and saw the little girl standing at the curb, looking at me with her friendly, inscrutable regard. "Get on home," Julio shouted at her. "I beat hell out of you." We went down the street and turned into a bit of lawn in which, set back from the street, stood a one-story building of brick trimmed with white. We went up the rock path to the door, where Ants halted everyone, except us, and made them remain outside. We entered, a bare room smelling of stale tobacco. There was a sheet iron stove in the center of a wooden frame filled with sand, and a faded map on the wall, and the dingy plat of a township. Behind a scarred, littered table, a man with a fierce roach of iron-gray hair peered at us over steel spectacles. "Got him, did you, Ants?" he said. "Got him, Squire." He opened a huge, dusty book, drew it to him, and dipped a foul pen into an inkwell filled with what looked like coal dust. "Look here, mister," Shreve said. "The prisoner's name?" The Squire said. I told him. He wrote it slowly into the book, the pen scratching with excruciating deliberation. Thank you.